welcome to the 2023 Capital Improvement Program Neighborhood Informational Presentation. I'm Andy Radig, and I'm joined today by City of Oshkosh Director of Public Works, James Robbie. James, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me. Good to be back in the studio again.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving us some information today. And if you could just give us a little bit of an overview of what the purpose of this presentation is.
Yeah, the primary purpose for this presentation is to have a recording available on the city's website for people who may be impacted by capital improvement projects in 2023, so they can watch it at their leisure, whenever it suits their needs. This used to be an in-person meeting. I think this gives people a little more opportunity to be able to get the information. One shot, one night they may not be able to make it. Now you can go back and watch it anytime you want to.
Sure, absolutely. Make it easily available for everybody.
Right.
What kinds of items are included in a capital improvement presentation?
Well,
program, I mean.
Yeah, for this presentation, it's really everything that is in the city's capital improvement program for 2023. So obviously big ticket items, street and utility improvements, our street reconstruction program, that's where that falls. But we got a lot of other street projects, stormwater utility, wastewater utility, and the water utility are all doing projects, whether it's stormwater specific to reduce flooding in targeted areas. The wastewater utility's got some projects going on out in the collection system and in the plant itself. The water utility, same thing, out in the system and at the plant. Our sidewalk, traffic improvements, improving signals and lighting. A lot of park improvements going on, as well as other general city property improvements. Whether it's doing a facility repair in City Hall or the senior center or one of the fire stations, those are all general property improvements. Mm-hmm. Then there's our major equipment replacement. That's a lot of times it's our vehicles. So for example, at street division, it's trucks, plow trucks, pickup trucks, those types of things all fall in the major equipment replacement. When it comes to the utilities, the major equipment replacement covers things like the ozone generators at the water filtration plant, or electrical equipment at the wastewater plant. They're all big major equipment that's going to have a fairly long life cycle, but still needs to be done. And then there's projects going on in the various tax incremental finance districts throughout the city.
So sometimes it's things that people see obviously when they're driving around town, but a lot of times it's those underground utilities or things that they don't see.
Right. Obviously a street reconstruction project, that's very visible during construction. Mm-hmm. But a project on some equipment in a building at, say, water filtration, you're probably never going to know the project's underway. But yet it's still a large-scale project, large expense, large lifetime. So it is a project that falls in the capital project side rather than in the operating budget side of things. Mm-hmm. So there's really, two avenues. It's either a capital project or it's an operating expense. Mm-hmm. So generally, if something's got a life cycle of greater than 10 years or is greater than $10,000, it's falling somewhere in the capital program. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't have that life cycle, garbage trucks, for example, they don't have that life cycle. They still show up in the capital projects, mm-hmm. but they're funded a little bit differently. But because it's a $250,000 purchase, they're still showing up in the capital budget. Mm-hmm. But like computer equipment, IT spends annually thousands of dollars replacing computers. Mm-hmm. They don't have a 10-year life cycle. Individually, they're $1,000, so it's an operating budget thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know that you have information that's out there about 2023's budget, and people can, it's an interactive interface, I understand.
Yes, we actually do have an interactive map that we've created and been updating now for a few years. The snapshot on the screen right now is from a couple years ago. Staff will be having that update completed here by the end of July. So by the time our informational letters go out to property owners, that interactive map will be available. And really any of the bars that you see on the screen are clickable and filterable. So if you only want to see projects that are in 2023, down in the bottom middle of the screen, you would click on the 2023 bar, and that'll filter all the rest of the results and update all the other charts and everything on the screen. So if you only wanted to see, paving projects, there's a filter on the left side of the screen for that. So you can really filter and can sort the projects in a lot of different ways. And then if you click in the map on any of those particular projects, it'll bring up specific information about the project. So it'll bring up, a project description and all the various budgets. So for a street reconstruction project, there would be a paving budget, a storm budget, a water, wastewater, sidewalk, traffic, lighting, all those various budgets will show up in the pop-up when you click on a project. So it is a very interactive tool that allows people to really sort through it at their leisure and pick out the projects that they want to learn more about.
Okay. And I guess if you can dive into some of those things.
Yeah, certainly, moving ahead a little bit, we'll kind of start with some of the big tickets, the street and utility reconstruction projects. So we've got quite a wide variety of projects coming up here in the next couple of years. Some images of a project from last year, kind of a before and after on West 9th Avenue, west of Oakwood. So, you can see the improvements, and that's really what we're going for is, trying to show those improvements. Moving forward into the 2023 projects, and we kind of break up our streets by functional classification. So, you can think of it, arterial streets, those are the main roads. That's where everybody's trying to get to. So you can think of it, the frontage roads, Washburn, Keller, 9th Avenue, Witzel, Jackson, Murdoch, Algoma, those are main roads through the city. Those are arterial streets. So one of the projects there for next year is Washburn Street from Dickinson Avenue to 20th Avenue. This project is partially being funded by the federal infrastructure law, the bipartisan infrastructure law. So this project will be bid through the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for construction next year, pulverizing and resurfacing that street. So it's not a full reconstruct. The cross section is going to stay the same. We're not adding, width. We're not adding sidewalks or anything like that. We're just replacing the pavement surface on this street.
Okay.
Likewise, moving into the collector classification, Osborne Avenue from Knapp Street to about 1,600 feet west of Knapp. It's not quite all the way to Keller Street. Again, this project is funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So those two projects, Washburn and Osborne, will be bid by the DOT under a single construction project, all managed by one contractor. Those bids will be opened in November of 2022, and we would expect construction to be starting sometime in the spring of 23. Given the location, our specifications with the DOT are going to call for a timeout around EAA so that these main routes on the south side are not impacted traffic-wise during the air show. So that's just some of the things that we typically do with a lot of our projects. We put timeouts in for the annual air show, and especially on the south side.
Okay. That's one of those unique things about living in Oshkosh, is we know our schedule of events and everything, with a lot of events happening here.
A lot of events happening here, and busiest airport in the world for that 1 week of the year, and hundreds of thousands of people coming from all over the world to visit the city of Oshkosh. So it is very important, especially on projects on the south side of the city, but anywhere in the city that we're buttoning up construction during that week. Often, any project on an arterial or main route, we're going to tell contractors, you're not working that week. You got to get things buttoned up and cleaned up.
Okay. And what is our next area that we would look at?
Next, moving into our local streets, we've got quite a long list. Bradley Street from 28th to Waukau, any of the businesses out there know it. That street really took a pounding during the Oregon Street reconstruction, so we're getting that one reconstructed. A couple of streets going together, McKinley and Lincoln in the university area. As you know, in 2022, we're doing Algoma right through the heart of the university. Next year, McKinley and Lincoln kind of, just off to the northeast side of the campus itself, but certainly in campus housing and off-campus housing areas.
Sure.
So a couple more projects around the university. And then one that, I'll be honest, I've been getting asked about for probably a decade, Wisconsin Street from Bent to New York. We're finally able to get through a lot of other high-priority streets, we'll call it, and Wisconsin is probably one of the ones, between that and Algoma were the two that I got the most questions about, and we're hitting them in back-to-back years. So Wisconsin Street from Bent to New York is much needed, and we're going to be hitting that one next year. Then kind of getting away from that area, we've got a group over on the west side of the Fox River, between the Fox River and Sawyer Street. just south of Oshkosh Ave there. Arthur, Tyler, Coolidge, Bauman, those are all right in the same area. In fact, Arthur and Tyler both go from Sawyer to Bauman. Bauman goes from Van Buren to Adams, so they all kind of cross. And then Coolidge is right there too. We've had a lot of storm sewer issues with the outfall out to the Fox River, so we're throwing that in the mix. So that'll all be done under a single project. And then Mockingbird, anybody that lives out in that area of Mockingbird, Rougefield, and Sawyer Creek Drive, there's just this massive sea of concrete there as these three streets all kind of come together. And over the years, there have been a lot of complaints of high speed through that intersection because it is a very wide curve. It's lacking the super elevation, but otherwise, it's like driving on a NASCAR track. It's a very wide open curve. So there have been a lot of complaints of speed in that area. So we've had these intersection improvements kind of on our radar for about 7 or 8 years, and we're finally being able to get them through the capital project and be able to start implementing that next year.
Sure. And that area is really growing too, so the traffic is probably more so.
There's a lot more traffic as Mockingbird and the Casey's Meadow subdivision continues growing west. Right now, the Rougefield and Mockingbird is the only way out of that subdivision. With one of the next phases of that subdivision, I know there's going to be a requirement to get the road extended out to Clairville Road at that time to give kind of that second way out.
Okay.
But right now, because of the growth in that Casey's Meadow subdivision, you're right, there's been a lot of traffic that moves through this intersection, and it's been a safety concern that a lot of the residents have brought to our attention over the years, and it's just a matter of getting it programmed in, and we feel good about being able to get to it next year.
Okay. And I know I've heard in the past discussion about, I believe it's called Pazer ratings, and does that work into these plans for these various streets?
Yeah, the Pazer rating, it's a pavement analysis system evaluation rating. So it's a way of rating a street. It's a 10-point scale, 10 being perfect, 1 being completely failed. So as we had the graphic up earlier with Wisconsin Street showing that picture, Wisconsin Street's rated a 2. It's basically failed. Once we get done reconstructing it, will be a 10. So the evaluation of selecting streets for street reconstruction, it uses not only that Pacer rating, but also we look at age and condition of underground utilities. For example, we do closed-circuit televising inspection of our storm and sanitary sewers, and then we work with our water distribution staff to see, where are areas that you've had a lot of water main breaks.
Okay.
So we use kind of all 4 of those things together to determine when we're going to program a street. For example, a street, about 7 or 8 years ago, Ontario Street between Linwood and Smith, several of the residents wanted that reconstructed, but we looked at it and like, what? The utilities just don't warrant a reconstruction. The street surface is not good, but the utilities don't warrant doing a full reconstruction. So we did an asphalt overlay. Let's buy 20, 30, 40 years on the street surface, then the utilities are going to need to be replaced.
Okay.
So just because a street is in bad condition doesn't automatically mean that it's going to get reconstructed, because those utilities might not be ready. So we're really looking at a combination of all of the infrastructure to determine when a project needs to just be, maybe it needs to just be a sewer lining project. Maybe it needs to just be a water main replacement project. Maybe it needs to just be a paving project or a full reconstruct. So we're looking at all of our city-owned infrastructure and evaluating it to make those decisions.
Okay, very good. What other projects do we have coming up?
I think one of the big things tying in with our street reconstruction projects is a lot of contractors starting to work now to help us get information. So at a recent council meeting, there were contracts awarded for doing soil borings on the streets, for doing closed-circuit televising of the sanitary and storm, and being able to televise up the laterals to help us identify which sewer laterals are active or not. So those agreements are getting underway, and those contracts are going to get started. Property owners adjacent to those projects are going to begin getting letters from the engineering division telling them that your street's on a project for next year. Here's a construction access agreement that will give us the ability to televise your lateral, will give us the ability to replace the sidewalk, because in the city of Oshkosh, The property line is the back of sidewalk. So if we're doing sidewalk replacement, we have to be able to put a form in along that back walk, which is technically then on private property. So we need to have this access agreement in place. If that's not in place, then the property owners are going to be responsible for replacing that sidewalk square in the future. So this is really, getting all of our approvals in place so that we can do the project in the most cost-effective manner for the property owners.
Okay, so there's a lot of planning involved.
There is a lot of planning involved, yes.
And we have some other projects coming up, not necessarily street related, but in different areas of utilities and such.
Yeah, so some of the older projects, Waukau taking a little bit of a break this year, but moving forward next year. And Bowen Street was actually bid this year, but it's actually going to construct next year.
Okay.
So that's just the way some of those projects have fallen together. The current Oregon project probably going to start in August or September and might linger into next year. So, just material supply challenges on both of those projects. So, those are going to see construction next year, but those property owners were all notified this year of that work. One of the water main projects, we've got a big water main replacement project coming up. Again, this is an area where storm sewer, paving, those infrastructure utilities they don't need to be replaced. But the water main, we've got some 4-inch water main in some of these areas, which is a high priority for us as a utility to get replaced due to flow, especially for fire flow conditions, but also a lot of breaks. We see Beach Street on here from Congress to Murdoch. Anybody who lives on that street in the last couple of years, the water distribution staff were out there for about 3 weeks in a row fixing water main breaks. They'd get one done, repressurize the system, and it would break 5 feet down. They'd fix that one, they'd repressurize the system, and break again 5 feet. So it's almost a continual patch out there right now. So we got to get in and replace that main. Clark's Court and Hollister, those both intersect, just off of Algoma. Again, some small main. We've had some break histories. And Oak Street, is a similar thing. Just trying to deal with some mains that we're having some problems with.
Okay. And then when you replace those, you might also be doing some checking to see what types of lines run to the residential property owner, if it's a lead line or that sort of thing.
That is correct. Property owners will be getting information from the engineering division and will be asked to coordinate some inspections with water distribution staff so that we can help the property owners determine if they have a lead water service or not. If they do have a lead water service, the public side is going to be replaced as a part of the project. That means the private side has to be replaced within 6 months of the city completing the public side. So residential properties are available are eligible for a cost share under our approved lead service line replacement policy. Right now that policy funds up to 50%, up to a maximum of $2,000. But there are also low to moderate income considerations. So residents meeting certain income considerations could be eligible for 75 or 100% of their private side replacement. I think an important thing to keep in mind is, right now this funding through the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program is an annual funding source.
Okay.
And there are a lot of strings attached to that. One of those being that the property owners cannot be reimbursed for their portion until the entire lead service is replaced. So from that standpoint, for people on the 2023 CIP, I would not try to rush out and do it now, because you're not going to be able to be reimbursed until the city gets done with our project in 2023, and that's going to depend on whether there's funding available in 2023 or not.
Okay.
So the people that are on the 2022 projects, they'll have 6 months from the time the city gets done, or some of them are trying to get theirs done in advance of our contractor coming through.
Okay.
So that 2022 documents were approved with the DNR in early July through the Common Council. So that is all in place, and I know we've started having some reimbursement requests coming in already here, just a couple of weeks. On the screen you can see our primary contact is Jody St. Charles. She actually sits at the wastewater plant, but this is one of her big projects that she manages, is the lead service replacement, and she is the primary contact for residents. She'll help them get through all the application process, get through, trying to help them find plumbers that have been pre-qualified. We've got a list out on our website of the pre-qualified plumbers, so she'll help them through all of that. And then when it comes to actually reimbursing, then they'll come to the Public Works main office at City Hall to submit that paperwork. And there's a lot more information available on the water utility webpage as well.
Okay, so if my street is being redone next year, you would advise to maybe not do a lead pipe replacement this year, but wait until next year?
If you want to get reimbursement through the policy, yes.
Okay.
Because the DNR program documents would not allow reimbursement until the entire service is replaced.
Okay.
And that includes both the public and the private side.
Okay, all right. And so obviously the public side is done when the road construction work is being done.
Correct.
So, okay.
If you wanted to do it all on your own without taking advantage of the reimbursement program, by all means, get it done right away. That'll put us on a clock, but we'll take a look at when it gets done, and we'll make sure that we get that part of the project done to meet that clock.
Okay. And I know that Public Works is also about to launch a campaign with more information about lead service line replacement. So residents can be looking for that information as well. Yes,
staff from our water utility, water filtration, and water distribution are getting ready to kick off a Get the Lead Out program. That will be starting in August. I know they've got several places where they're going to have their informational stand set up. They're going to do a couple of farmers market dates. They'll have, I know St. Vinny's is going to be doing some things with them. There's a good half a dozen different places that they will be having information available for people to come pick up. All that information is available on the city's website as well. I know one of the water filtration staff and I did a presentation at the Tuesday Noon Kiwanis about the lead service replacement program as well, and provided them copies of all that information. And one of those members that were there signed up for an inspection to where water distribution staff will come out and do an inspection at the meter and let them know what kind of pipe is coming through the floor and going up to the meter. Is it lead? Is it copper? Is it something else? So, and those are all things. I know as they do some of the information tables, like at the farmers market, the staff are going to have tablets right there that people can sign up for inspections as well.
Okay. Well, and like you said, there's a lot more information on the city's website for that information, and we'll continue to pass it along through Oshkosh Media as well. As far as the capital improvement program, what are the next steps, or where do you go next with it?
We got a couple of those things coming up. I think, before we get to some of the upcoming meetings, some of the challenges that we've got, there are a lot of times there's some concerns with access during the capital improvement program and during construction projects. Contractors, will coordinate for residential garbage and recycling collection, so we want to make sure that residents have their collections out. Vehicle access to driveways will get restricted periodically, and then during pavement for 6 months or 6 weeks. I'm sorry, 6 weeks. Access will get maintained to businesses. Parking is generally available on cross streets. U.S. Postal Service delivery to mailboxes that are mounted on people's homes, that'll be unaffected. But if you've got a rural type mailbox that's out at the street, contractor's going to have to coordinate that with the post office, and because that'll have to get taken down for a period of time. One of the big things that we always ask people is if you or one of your neighbors has special access needs. Maybe you're disabled and in a wheelchair, or one of your neighbors is, or walks with a walker, is limited mobility. Please give the engineering division a call so that we can coordinate those special access needs into the specifications before bidding, because we will do that.
Okay, so there are a lot of considerations, really, with a lot of logistics and different things to be considered.
Yeah, it really is, and we want to try to. We recognize it's a disturbance. I've been on a project, a water main replacement project. I couldn't park in my driveway for a week, as they were doing the work and then getting the pavement restored. Just recently, The sidewalk rehab project came through my neighborhood. My neighbor couldn't park in her driveway for a little over a week because sidewalk and her driveway apron were being replaced. So we know it's a disturbance. We know it's a disruption. We're trying to coordinate people being able to park as close as possible to their houses. And if we know there are special considerations, we'll get them built right into the specs.
Okay. There was one question circling back again to the lead service replacement. What if the city lead, if the city's, the public portion of the line replacement is done, but the residential is still lead? How does the reimbursement work for that if maybe there was a little bit of time that passed?
So do you mean if it was on a current project or maybe a prior project before we started having a lead service program?
Maybe a prior project.
So certainly, the city has been replacing public side lead services for a little over 20 years. The private side lead service program has only been in place for about 5. So there's about 15 years worth of construction that the public side's been done, but the private side wasn't.
Okay.
Those people there's an application form that those property owners can submit that application form and work with Jody to get all that information submitted and get approval to get their private side replaced, not as a part of one of our public projects, but as an aside. So people not on our projects right now can request to have their lead service replacement done.
Okay. Well, good to know and good for people to keep that in mind.
Yes, thank you for that reminder as well.
Sure. And what other considerations do we have with the capital improvements?
I think, one of the biggest discussion points we always have is the cost of the projects. As you and I have talked about now for a few years, the city does have a special assessment policy in place. I know there's been a lot of discussion about maybe trying to do something about that and change that. As of right now, that hasn't changed. Right. So that special assessment policy is still in place. We won't establish the 2023 rates until probably December. We'll have enough time to go through and do the calculations to determine the 23 rates. But the 22 rates are available certainly from the engineering division, but they are likely also on our webpage as well. And we've got a few of them displayed here on screen. There is a distinction or a differentiation between residential and non-residential because the policy identifies residential versus non-residential separately. So that's kind of a breakdown of the concrete street assessment costs. And then there's also costs for other things like sanitary sewer relay or a new storm lateral or replacing a water service or sidewalk rehab or new sidewalk or driveway aprons. And again, those are calculated based upon the bid cost once we have the projects come in, especially for the new items like a new service, sewer, water service, a new driveway apron, new sidewalk. Those are all calculated based off the bid cost for those projects.
Okay. Just a curiosity question. If a person that lives on a street that they feel that their road, should probably be upgraded or repaired, is there still a process where they can submit a petition among the residents in that area? Or I know there used to be something similar to that.
Yeah, that used to be the only way you could get a street reconstruction.
Okay.
You had to get at least 50% of your neighbors to sign on to agree to getting it done. That's not how we do it anymore. We look at it very programmatically, very strategically.
Okay.
In fact, we've had, obviously Wisconsin Street's been being asked for years. We're finally able to fit it into the program. We've got other streets, for example, it took us a while to get the CP from Bowen to the lake. But part of that was because we had to, extend some deeper sanitary sewer down Bay Shore and up lake to be able to better serve it. So, we are very strategic in how we look at projects now, and not, okay, I'm going to do that street and that one. It's like, well, but to get that one, I need to do these other three because I got to get a bigger sewer there, or I got to get a bigger water main loop there to help resolve some pressure or fire flow issues.
Sure.
So we look very strategically at our street reconstruction program and making sure that we're not kind of hopscotching around and causing us bigger problems down the road.
Sure.
We work with our engineering consultants to do a lot of system modeling for our sanitary sewer and our water main system, so we know where we have areas that we need to work on.
Okay.
We really do it programmatically. Certainly, if somebody feels that their street needs some consideration, I would encourage them to contact the engineering division and start having a conversation with our staff, so that chances are we're probably already aware of it, but we just may not have gotten a chance to program it yet, or maybe it's something we do need to look at a little closer. So it really starts with a conversation more than anything now.
Okay, very good. A lot of considerations under the street that people might not be aware of.
Yeah, and as we mentioned a little bit before, it's not just the street surface that drives a street reconstruction project. We've had cases where a street's been in okay condition, maybe Pacer rated a 5, middle of the road, but if all 3 utilities underneath it are shot and falling apart, we're just going to do a full street reconstruction, replace all those utilities, and get that new street put on top of it. Conversely, if the street's falling apart but the utilities are in good shape, we're just going to do a pavement project,
right?
And buy us 30 years before we got to do a reconstruction.
Okay, very good. Well, where do we go next with the whole process with this?
Well, where are we going from here? Common Council's had one workshop talking about the CIP and preliminary already. Plan Commission will be discussing the capital improvement program at their August 16th meeting. Then Common Council will be asked to approve the plan for the capital improvement program at their August 23rd meeting. And then moving forward from there, November 2nd will be the budget hearing, and then November 9th will be the budget approval. So that's operating and capital budget approval at the Common Council meeting on November 9th.
Okay, a lot of meetings coming up, and Oshkosh Media will be televising those meetings as well.
And I would also say, residents are encouraged to come to any council meeting, and they can speak to anything on the agenda or not. There's always a public comment period at all the council meetings. So, if the CIP is not a topic of that agenda and you want to say something about the CIP, sign up and you've got your 5 minutes to say what you need to say, so that council and staff can hear what you have to say.
Okay, very good. And with that, what is the best way that folks can find out more information about the capital improvement program?
I think the best way to get more information is going to be starting at our website. There is a capital improvements page on the city's website. It can be found under the departments pull down, and it's right there, capital improvements. Also, there you can reach out to either myself, Steve Godey, or Justin Gierock. Engineering division phone number is right there. All 3 of us can be reached at that phone number. The general public works department email address is also listed here on the screen, dpw@ci.oshkosh.wi.us. That comes actually the 3 of us listed on the screen, plus the department's administrative assistant, all have access to that email address. So any one of us who's available will be able to respond to inquiries from there. And if we need to schedule a meeting with someone to sit down and talk at greater length about a project affecting their property, we're more than willing to sit down and do that with people.
Okay. Any closing thoughts, James?
I think the biggest thing is, as we talked about, this presentation is really an opportunity to inform people of what's coming up next year, give them the opportunity to engage us and the council to give their feedback. But moving forward, I think the biggest thing is we understand these construction projects are a disruption to day-to-day life, and we ask for patience because at the end of the day, our staff and our contractors want to get them done and get out of property owners' way just as quickly as possible, because we want to minimize that disturbance. So our goal is to be in and out as quickly and safely as possible, and we just need a lot of patience and cooperation so we can get that done.
Okay. Well, James, thank you very much for your time today and for sharing all of this information with us.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay. And again, if residents would like more information about the capital improvement program, please visit the city's website at www.ci.oshkosh.wi.us. Thank you for watching and have a good day.